Hi, welcome to another Mayor's Report, which I believe will be very helpful and interesting to you. It is about ID theft. Over the past several years, and increasingly so in the recent past, I've been putting out email blasts and communications and Facebook and so on about the scams that are going on, not only in the village of Mamaroneck, but throughout the entire country. Most recent ones, of course, the IRS and Con Ed. You'll get a call from supposedly the IRS saying, if you don't pay this, we're going to come arrest you. They said, well, this is Con Ed. If you don't send this money in right away, we're going to turn your electric off and so on. A lot of people are not affected by it, but a great number are, particularly people that don't have the general background and know better, or even senior citizens that get fearful. I know people that have told me their parents, senior citizens, are ready to send money. One of the easiest scams around was they call up and they hit, grandma, and they don't realize who it is. I've been arrested, don't tell my parents. Exactly. Send $3,500, get out of bail, and so on. And people have done that. There's a recent case, actually, I was talking out of Harrison, where this scam came up on the IRS, and they ended up getting over $300,000 out of somebody. Luckily, very unusual, they ended up nailing the person, but it was down in New Orleans. And the sad part is a lot of these places are overseas and by computers. And I'm glad to have Oscar Capel here, who's an expert in this, to shed some more light in this and how perhaps everybody can be more aware and protect themselves from this. So Oscar, why don't you give a general background, and then we can talk about actually what ID theft is, and we can go into specifics.
Sure. I got into this after 4 people I know had their identity stolen in 1 year. So I decided that I need to look into this, see what I can do, and so that's what I did. Become the local expert on identity theft and all the different facets of identity theft.
Well, is there a sort of a definition of identity theft? People just throw that term around. I mean, it's so broad-based, and as I just noted in the beginning, I'm sure that just scratches the surface of all the different scams.
Yes. When we talk about identity theft, we have to realize that our identity basically comes down to a handful of numbers. To our family and friends, Norman, Oscar, but I can't get on the phone, call the airline, say I'd like a ticket to Spain, and by the way, it's Oscar, just send it to me. They're going to need some numbers. They're going to need a credit card number, social security number. If it's local, it's a driver's license, and if it's overseas, it's going to be a passport number. Now, all of those numbers basically tell the rest of the world who we are, and each of those numbers can be stolen and have our identity stolen in basically not stolen but cloned, because if you get your car stolen, you don't have it anymore. But when someone steals your identity, you're still you, and someone else is also you.
But you don't know that they have that information.
So if you look at the commercials you see on TV and radio, you'll think it's just identity theft is just your credit card, your bank account, your mortgage. But all of those numbers I gave get stolen, and people use those numbers. Besides the financial, there is also driver's license identity theft. There is social security identity theft, medical and character and criminal. So the last 4, you basically cannot fix yourself. You're going to need some sort of legal help.
Is there any recommendations to help prevent theft in itself before it even happens? We can always talk about what happens afterwards.
Right. Prevention, at the point we're at right now, prevention is pretty much, I would say, no. You can't prevent it because there are professional identity thieves that are working not only as syndicates, but also they're coming from foreign countries. You're having
China, Russia.
China and Russia. The OPM was hacked for about, I believe, 20 million. That's Office of Personnel Management. That's a federal agency. Pentagon. And they got hacked, and they believe it was from China for 20 million records.
Amazing. And can you give a little more detail of, aside from the ones I noted,
Sure.
that you're aware of, the type of scams that are out there?
Okay, so with driver's license identity theft, someone can get a driver's license, and it's under your name, but they use a driver's license.
You originally, like, I have a driver's license now.
Right.
Can someone steal the numbers from my driver's
Yes,
license?
and
how
they
do get
basically
that?
clone the Department of Motor Vehicles put out this great book on the new security methods for driver's license, all these new security things that were put into place. Within a week, that book was available on eBay. And also they had, I forget which Department of Motor Vehicles, they actually had the machine stolen. So someone could duplicate license plates. So criminals will get it. And what happens is you don't find out someone has taken your driver's license until you get pulled over for whatever, it's a red light or whatever.
Right.
And you're thinking, the cop's going to come up and say, license registration. They take it, all of a sudden, you're up against the wall. And you're in jail. There's a guy, Gerber Guzman. That exact thing happened to him. He got arrested. He was in jail for 2 weeks until the fingerprints came back that it wasn't him. It's his name, everything else, but it wasn't him. And he spent 2 weeks in jail. 6 years later, he was arrested again on the same warrant.
Amazing.
So it's the wheels.
Well, how do you go about? Maybe I'm jumping the gun, but how do you go about preventing being in jail for 2 weeks or 6 years later?
Well, Guzman actually carries a notarized paper from the marshal saying, if you see a warrant for my arrest, it's not really me. This is how it happened. So they get your driver's license and commit crimes, and it comes back to you. Social Security is another ID theft. Social Security is very common. There are a lot of undocumented workers. They need a Social Security card to be able to cash a paycheck. So now they'll get Social Security numbers. That'll work for about 2 weeks until the IRS says this number doesn't match this name, and then they go out and they buy another Social Security number. Children are very, very susceptible to this because they know, the identity thieves know that they can take that Social Security number and use it and probably not be detected for at least a year until somebody files a IRS form, with a dependent child.
Right.
And if that doesn't get picked up, not until they're almost going into college and they start filling out forms and I'm sorry, you can't get a college loan because you're in debt, you owe this, you're in foreclosure, you've had 3 bankruptcies, and that's when people find out that their Social Security number has been stolen. The Social Security Administration knows about this. There's actually an IRS form to fill out if your identity has been stolen. They've actually changed it from identity theft to actually borrowing your Social Security number. So they don't call it
considered a theft anymore?
No, they consider it borrowing because the IRS gets income tax. So they don't care if it's the real you or somebody else as long as they're getting income tax.
So what you're telling me, if someone got my information and they filed a bogus tax return, and I would be subject to that, and if when I file my income tax return, it's quote legitimate, and I ask for a refund, I doubt it, but if I was lucky enough to get a refund,
Right.
I wouldn't get it because
You
the
wouldn't
site
get
was
it.
already paid already?
Well, you'd get it eventually, but there's sorry, you've already had your check cashed. There was a guy who almost lost his business because he was relying on that amount of money from the end of the year to tide him over. But when that didn't happen, he got into a whole bunch of trouble, had to go for loans and everything. So it really, really upsets your life to no end, between driver's license, Social Security. The worst one, in my opinion, is medical identity theft.
And what is that?
That's when someone goes to the hospital and says, my name is Oscar, here's all my information, do everything you have to do, and then the bill comes to the real Oscar.
Right.
And the real Oscar says, I didn't
Don't
get
they
my
ask
leg
for
amputated.
I go to the hospital for a test, and they ask for identification, your birth date, and
They
everything
ask
else.
for everything, but somehow the medical identity
Really?
theft is the highest. It's growing like crazy.
And must be even more exacerbated with the new Obamacare. with
Exactly.
people.
The everything's supposed to be
Requirements are crazy.
digitized, and the hospitals are not looking at, how do I protect all this information? Right now they're trying to, okay, how do I get all this information digitized? The biggest problem with medical identity theft is the permanent record, your medical identity record, the MIB. That's a permanent record. If someone steals your identity, they go to the hospital, whatever ailments they have, whatever allergies they have, goes on your record. And the next time
So that
you
could
go,
be very dangerous. If you go in and they
that's
look at
deadly.
a medical record,
Yes.
that's not your true medical record.
that's and I have a record that the guy had a heart attack, went to the hospital, went to the emergency room with his wife, and the doctor says, okay, we see you're HIV positive, your husband's HIV positive and diabetic, so we're going to give him the insulin, and she says, wait, he's not diabetic, and he's not HIV positive. So had they given him the insulin
killed him.
injection, it would have killed him.
So let me ask you this question, because it's interesting. I try as a reasonable, normal person. I have credit cards, and there are the credit card companies, when you go online or even when they send you bills, will sort of help you do things. Like I have at a certain number, the credit card, actually I get a report every day. So I know if there's charges on my card, any of my cards. I get a red flag at anything over a certain dollar amount.
Right.
They won't authorize the card unless they contact me with specific personal information,
Right.
To verify it. Now, what I'm concerned about is you're telling me someone could break into any of these credit cards that I have, the company, and find out what this, quote, special information is as a guardian, that they can then override that and charge it?
Not that I know of. I also, my Chase account has alerts. Anytime my card is used, I get an alert. But my TD card, I did not have that alert. And 2 weeks ago, I got a call from TD, and they said, "Did you charge $250 and 100?" And I said, "No, I didn't." So they caught it right away. Now my TD card does have the alerts, but as much as all these companies and the banks especially try to stay ahead of the identity theft, they can't do it, because there are people that are dedicated 24 hours a day to hacking whatever firewall they have.
Absolutely. I can tell you, we've discussed it before. I happen to work, aside part-time as mayor, I have a full-time job working for an avionics company. I deal with ICE and sting operations and so on. Also at the FBI. The FBI comes to the plant all the time to give information out. And it's more interesting because the potential sources from your computer itself. We're told specifically, if you go to a foreign country, particularly China, Russia, Far East, Middle East, and in some parts of South America, do not bring your normal computer with you, because they said, and they even demonstrated, you can go with a computer, and they'll say they want to check it, and they take it over. In 3 or 4 minutes, they'll download your entire computer with all your information and everything else.
All your passcodes, all your bank
What they
accounts.
do is a preventative measure is bring a blank computer with you, bring a little stick with you, maybe,
Right.
To do it. It's just amazing what's out there. So are there any things that, as the expert, you can say with recommendations like from the FBI or ICE, because what they're looking for is obviously to steal drawings and so on, and information. What recommendations do you have for people? What can they do to help prevent themselves? Or you just sit there? Are you just wide open and subject to it?
Well, what you don't want to do is use public Wi-Fi. I wouldn't use public Wi-Fi for anything.
So that's like if you're in an airport, something
Right,
like
you're in an airport, it's like free Wi-Fi.
that? Right. A hotel, same thing?
Exactly. Nothing. I wouldn't put anything in there with a password. I wouldn't use definitely no banking. You don't want to use Wi-Fi. The latest thing now is the apps on your phone. You have free apps. A free app will do this, a free app will do that. A lot of those have Trojan horses in them, and they're able to listen to your conversation. And if they get into your phone and you start doing your banking, that Trojan will pick up that information and give it back to, so it's this great app. Oh, look, it's free. It does this for me. It reads that. You put it on your phone, and now you've just opened up your phone, and all the information.
What kind of apps? Not a putting yourself so they're going to sue you or anything. saying the app shouldn't do it, but
I'm not saying every app.
no, not every
Well,
app,
or-
but a certain type of app. Like you can have an app for, I don't know.
Again,
There's so many of them are
yeah,
out there, and
well,
most of them are free.
Right.
A lot of
So who does the app? Who's making it? Where is it coming from? Is it a reputable reputable company that's doing it, or is it a shell company of hackers that are making apps?
Is there a way to check out an app? In other words,
Not that I know of,
does
but
like a Citibank have an app?
Citibank has an
Right.
app, and I would say, okay, that was a pretty good one.
Right.
But
As an example.
yeah, but I don't know.
So
At
if you
this
don't
point
know
right
about
now,
an app and it's free and it's very enticing, don't do it. It's like Wi-Fi.
yeah, well, we do have the internet, so you can start checking and say, does this app have any associated Trojans with it, and you just ask around. But again, if it is that hidden, you won't know. I've seen, because I go crazy with this. I start watching every YouTube and everything I can get my hands on identity theft, and they showed a woman who downloaded an app and they put the phone down and she's like, look, we can hear everything you say just because you downloaded this particular app.
You have a lot of material over here. I mean, how
Yeah,
effective is this my concern is, as I send all the emails out all the time, watch this theft, watch this theft. A lot of people, of course, get frustrated because, like the IRS, that call up the IRS, and the reality is they're not going to check these guys out. They're in Nigeria someplace or Europe.
they're
They're not going to get it. But how do we educate people to, when they call up and they say, this is the IRS, I know because I'm involved with the
Right.
utility, Westchester Joint Waterworks. No utility is going to threaten you on the phone. They don't do that. But people get intimidated anyway. So what's the process of educating people to say, thank you, call me, I'll call you later, and just hang up the phone?
Well,
or don't do anything on the computer. Like you said, don't use the Wi-Fi.
Don't use don't use public Wi-Fi with any important information or anything with a password. At this point, we're learning and evolving, and every day there's a new scam. Now there's a scam just came out that they call you up. There's a scam going on in your neighborhood, and we want to protect you. Oh, great! Tell me about it. And the scam is it's
Give
a
you the
scam
information,
protection.
right.
So, when do you know when it's a real call? Being a New Yorker, I assume anyone that calls me, and I don't know them, I don't trust them. It's a scam. But it's got to be through education and through just realizing what is going on and how it's evolving. The identity theft has gotten from like a one-on-one identity theft or stealing. It was called skimming. They take a credit card, they use it and they skim it, and they copy the number and they use your credit card. Then it went to paying people, insiders, for information. Now you got someone who's making minimum wage working in a medical office, and they said, listen, for every 100 records you copy, I'll give you $500. So now, it's like it's not costing them any. Nothing really gets stolen. You're just copying some information, handing it to the other guy.
So when you go to a medical group, there's very few doctors left. They're all in medical groups. Right. Do you go in and ask them what kind of security do you have?
No, but I want to know why they ask for my driver's license on the medical when I go to sign up. It's like driver's license number. Like, why do you need my driver's license? How many bits of information am I going to put on this one piece of paper?
Right.
That if it gets stolen.
So the more information out there, the more liability.
Right. The medical records are a big problem because every time you go to the medical office, they take your ID card and they scan it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, chances are that scanner is a leased scanner. And it's got like 4 terabytes of memory in that scanner. And there's a whole bunch of people that buy scanners out of lease, pull out that memory, and there are tens of thousands of records.
Well, actually, you brought up an interesting point. I know I've done this and discussed it with IT guys, not only at the village, but where I work. And I'm telling people out there, if you have like the Xerox machine for copies and everything else, those copies, every copy that you make is in that. If it's a lease or you own it and you're going to get rid of it, you have to take the memory and wipe that memory out.
Right.
Otherwise, and this even the government does this, believe it or not. They'll get rid of copying machines and give it back, and they give out all this information. So this is the type of thing that you want to do. What else can individuals specifically do to help protect themselves?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm doing workshops at the library, and I have a bunch of information from the government. And between, like, anyone who's interested in and see, what exactly can I do? We have identity theft, what to know, military personnel, phone scams, your child's future, and then taking charge, which is actually a large publication with as much information as you can sit down.
How often do you do these programs in the library?
I'm trying to do it once a month, and
When's the next one?
the next one I haven't scheduled yet,
Okay.
but I will be scheduling that by the end of the week.
And if people are interested in attending this, how do they get a hold of you? I think is it going to be up on the screen?
Yeah, they can
Good.
call and find out, because there is limited seating at our library here. So I want to know, the size of room that I'm going to need.
And what's the number they should call?
914, what's my number? 914, I never call myself.
I know. I never call myself.
I don't
That's
know.
it'll be on the screen.
It'll be on
anyway.
the screen because I
And
never.
what's your do you have a website or anything?
Yes, it's OscarCapel.com. OSCARCAPEL.com. And but what you're saying is we have to be vigilant. We can't just answer the phone and give out information on the phone, and just be aware of its situational awareness. Like this is it's growing. It's growing faster than the drug cartels. There are drug people that have stopped selling drugs and are doing identity theft because they're not going to get shot at. There's a 1 in 700 chance of getting caught, and it's quite lucrative if you do it correctly.
And do you know of anything that the government, federal government, or local, state governments are trying to do?
Keep looking at the IRS sites, and they do put out information, which is basically the same information that I have in the pamphlets that I have. There's
I know.
There's only so much you
throw
can
something
do.
out. I don't know if you get into this. It comes with security, but I can tell you that anyone who comes knocking on your door or calls you up and said that we have to come in, we have to do an investigation, it's an emergency, they should have an ID.
Correct.
If you have any concern, don't open the door, especially if you're a child and your parents are not home. If you're a senior citizen, don't open the door. If they say they're from the Westchester Joint Waterworks or Con Ed, you say, wait a minute, and you go and call up on the phone.
Right.
And do that. If you have any concern, call the police department. And you can dial 911 and ask for the local police, in this case the Village of Mamaroneck, and say, I'm a little concerned, and they come to you. And I'm sure no one's going to mind that, for security.
If it's a legitimate security,
Right.
if it's a legitimate waterworks person, they'll know the routine.
We sort of touched on it before, but how do you prevent hackers? You can't stop
There
them.
you go.
How do you make it more difficult for a hacker trying to get into your computer?
You keep your firewalls up. You install a virus protection, a Norton or whatever virus protection you can put in. Can you totally prevent it at this point? No, which is the scary part.
Okay, but, believe it or not, we can go on for a couple hours on this. All the people getting ripped off. I know people in the Village of Mamaroneck, they get ID theft, and it takes years and years.
Yes.
It's very frustrating. It's not like you lose your wallet and you call up and you cancel your cards.
Correct. That's what everybody thinks identity theft is. I was speaking with someone and they said, "Oh, my credit's so bad they can take my identity." It's like you're missing the whole other part of identity theft, which is your driver's license, your medical records, Social Security, and once it gets into criminal activity, it comes back, and now you're looking at court time, you're looking at police procedures, and it'll haunt you for years. You probably know someone who.
Plenty of people. I've heard rumors. I don't know if it's true. You might know as an expert. I was told that even if you turn your computer off, if you're still hooked up into your router, people can get in. Is that true? Is there truth to that?
Well,
So you disconnect is the best way. If you go away, do you disconnect your router?
Yeah, well, I go away. I disconnect everything anyway. Just I don't need the router on if I'm not on a computer. But at this point, I don't know exactly what I can say to say yes. We finally found how to protect ourselves against hackers, because if we find out how to do it tomorrow, by Saturday, there'll be a new way to get in.
So I hate to say this because we're getting close, but it's great to live in a democracy, and you think that everybody's a nice guy, but obviously a lot of nasty people out there trying to steal your funds and your identity for nefarious purposes. So even though you don't like to say it, should you assume that if anything is going to be out there, they're going to try and get it to you, and you should be overly careful. Don't give out your social security number. Don't give it any personal information, no matter what, unless you're specifically required and you can 100% know who that person is you're giving it to.
Right, and even that, like I said, with the medical records, when they ask for extra information, why do you need my driver's license numbers? Because that number belongs to me, and and each one of those numbers are worth something.
Right.
In the field of identity theft, a driver's license is worth $50. A social security card is worth this number of dollars. So it's this huge black market of basically little bits of numbers. And there's one identity theft that's it's a new one. It's like I forgot.
Well, I know the new one just came out. I was reading about this week. People are stealing deeds information and filing and selling homes from under people. Now,
Wow.
it may take you years to get it done, but it's there. You should be suspicious. And I guess just don't be afraid to ask questions, even in a, quote, legitimate setting. If you go to the hospital and they ask you a question, why do you need this information?
Ask them, why do you need this information?
Right.
Why exactly? And, well, because they told me I need it. Well, you're not having it. Here I am.
Right.
Here's my.
Well, unless
here's
they
my,
say, I'm sorry, you can't have the operation.
Yeah,
Let's
but
give this information.
until then,
you should do it. But
yeah, but it's just there. And even when you go to a store and you buy something and they ask you for your phone number,
right? Why do you
or your
need it?
email? It's like, why do you need my email?
I don't want to cut you off, but believe it or not, we have to wrap it up.
Okay.
So why don't you give your telephone number again, or your website, and then they can also check out. I guess they can check in the library too when your next program will be.
Yeah, and we'll go through all the information, and we'll hit the identity theft, the different levels of identity theft, what you can do to minimize the risk as much as possible, because we can't eliminate it, but we can just minimize it, so you're not just saying, here's all my information, take it.
Correct. So I will end it up by saying what Judge Judy says: if it's too good to be true, it is not true. Be very careful, be very suspicious. Thank you for coming. I know we just scratched the surface, but
Yes.
It helps push and exemplify why people have to be afraid.
It's just
So
we
thank you.
need to be more aware,
Right.
basically, of what's going on.
Thank you.